another great day. I'm Jordan Strudwick. I'm joined by my co-host and Zimbali's CTO, Sriram Nagaraj. Today, we're going to be talking about our perspective on Hedera Hashgraph, why we believe that it is the ideal foundational distributed ledger technology for us, and fight some of the fear, uncertainty, and doubt that there is floating around concerning the hash graph. We have a lot of faith in the hash graph. We have been building with Hedera for years. We have received a $500,000 grant from Hedera to build out our services, but we were already building with Hedera for a long time before that. So it's not like we are pro Hedera because of that grant. We in fact received that grant because we're pro Hedera more so. Hedera recently had a major accomplishment doing 24 million transactions in just 10 hours. That was yesterday on the mainnet. An incredible accomplishment. We participated in the Outlier Ventures Hedera Basecamp cohort along with companies like Dropper, Hashguild, Mawari, and Post Quantum. So we have a lot of confidence in Hedera due to our experience and due to our analysis of the fundamental technology of the hash graph that Dr. Lehman Baird gave birth to. And so Sriram is much more technically able than almost anybody. Dr. Nagaraj is really an incredible scientist. He's going to talk today about the guts of the Hedera Hashgraph, the basis for our confidence, which is ultimately the technology that it's built on. So, Dr. Nagaraj, the floor is yours. Why is Hedera the best network for us to build what we're building on?
Thanks, Jordan. Hope everyone is doing well on this wonderful Thursday. So I want to start out maybe just like where we left off last time, just sort of like as a summary, and then, of course, that will also partially address the question as to why we are preferring Hedera. So if you all recall, Hedera is this third generation DLT based off of a graph-based model. And because of its technical guarantees in terms of asynchronous Byzantine fault tolerance, it's basically as cryptographically secure as anything else. More some actually, possibly. And also the speed and efficiency of the transaction throughput. I think those were the salient points. From a developer's perspective, now I haven't, I've worked with the Hedera SDK quite a bit, and as a developer, I can tell you that the documentation and getting started with the SDK and the just the entire development process in building with SDK software development kit is really, really nice. And so, and there are lots of examples for the various services, token service, consensus service, and so on. So from a developer standpoint, it's also very, very easy to just get started. And the technical support from the Hedera developers themselves is quite timely. So from that perspective, also, I'm kind of like from the practitioner's point of view, I'm very happy as well. Now, it's more than just simply a choice. Somewhat more than like, oh, okay, so there's Ethereum and all of these other blockchain platforms that people are building off of. Hedera seems like this cool thing, so let's just go ahead and do it. So there was a lot more informed decision making than simply that. And so far, what we've actually been able to achieve using the Hedera platform is, as you guys may remember, is we were able to build a CBDC central bank digital currency pilot. Again, that's all with native Hedera services, and so it yields itself easily to a variety of use cases and applications, right? And so that from an experiential perspective, it's been really nice developing on Hedera. Now, I would like to address today, maybe briefly, some of the naysayers or some criticisms about the Hedera platform, and in particular, there is this article, the so-called fun article, by Eric Wall, but this is actually now, more than 2 years ago. This was dated September 2nd, 2019, and so there have been quite a few changes, most notably the fact that Hedera is now open source. At the time of writing, one of the big complaints that was raised was, well, it's patented, and so if something is patented, then I can't see it, and so I don't trust it. Well, that argument doesn't hold anymore because it is open source, and so just wanted to note that off the bat. The one thing that this article seems to be trying to address is that, these guys are saying that you can do more than 10,000 transactions per second on Hedera. What gives? This can't be done, or like there must be some, fine print or some technical oversight. Just not possible. And I must say, the writer Eric Wall is a very articulate kind of guy, and so he makes it seem as though it's a big issue and so on and so forth. I encourage people to read that. But if you look carefully at the arguments, they are kind of misplaced. And so I'd like to maybe just go through some of the sort of rebuttals that was made by Paul Madsen, who at the time on September 6th, so this thing came out September 2nd, September 6th, there was this rebuttal by Paul Madsen, who was at the time head of identity at the HBAR Foundation. I will also note that, just in terms of tone and cadence, the original FUD article, the tone was, I don't know, a bit boisterous in some sense, and whereas the counter FUD from Hedera is a much more polished and sort of just more, sure, I had a nicer feel to it. But anyway, so addressing the 10,000 transactions per second, right? So some of the things that are raised in the article by Eric Wall to begin with was, well, okay, so you've got your consensus service, but you're saying that the 10,000 transactions per second limit, the lower limit, is basically, it doesn't matter that how good your consensus service is, because that limit is because of the bandwidth. And so what he's saying is he's trying to first make a comparison with Bitcoin and saying, well, people say Bitcoin is slow because of the proof of work, and if only someone came up with a faster proof of work, then the Bitcoin network would also be able to increase the number of transactions per second. And then he goes on to talk about sort of the fiber network, sort of Bitcoin core, using compact blocks and so on and so forth. But then, in terms of, there's this picture about cards in a line and so on and so forth, which kind of actually, to be honest, I felt was a bit tangential to the main point. So then the question is, can't you just, basically, what is Hedera doing? Because if its consensus algorithm is super fast, and his main issue is that from the Hedera white paper, he's kind of cherry picking the statement saying that so the hashgraph is fast, it's limited only by bandwidth, and so his complaint is that Hedera is not even talking about how fast your consensus algorithm is. In other words, the bottom line is it doesn't, because they're not talking about the consensus algorithm, it doesn't matter. Everything else subsequently doesn't really matter. So the rebuttal to that is, so there are two things, right? And this is sort of the crux of the matter. Every network, be it Bitcoin, be it Ethereum, be it whatever, you kind of optimize the performance of your network for a certain use case or a certain application or whatever. So you could construct, and this is kind of independent of the consensus mechanism. This is just design, right? So it could be you're using proof of work or proof of stake or whatever, but regardless, at the end of the day, you're kind of going to optimize your network for a particular use case. It's actually very similar to how computer hardware works, right? So, Intel processors versus, their competitors, right? Basically, each processor is designed to optimize something. And the same thing even with operating systems. Like, I run an operating system on my laptop called Pop OS, which is optimized for high-performance computing. And so, in the same way, Hedera has chosen to optimize for its native currency, the transactions with HBAR. And so, the comparison, I think, is one of apples versus oranges because, you can't possibly, compare the speeds of smart contracts on an EVM versus native cryptocurrency transaction speeds, right? And so I think one of the unfortunate sort of things of that FUD is that there is this sort of argument that it's kind of they're comparing transactions per second with the native HBAR versus say things on the EVM, right? The Ethereum EVM. So that is one kind of issue with that paper or that article. And in addition to that, when Eric Wall's talking about the actual consensus service, right? And so Hedera offers a separate consensus service, sort of, and you can look this up in the SDK. It offers a separate consensus service, which, as a developer, you can just use for timestamping, for some other purpose that you have, right, in a need for consensus, independent of what are the transactions that are being run on the main main network. And so, because of that, when you're using its consensus service, there is no guarantee that you will have the same, transaction speeds using a separate consensus service instance on your application versus what is running on the main Hedera network. And again, that point is being conflated, which is unfortunate because the guarantee is when you're running stuff on the main Hedera network, not a separate consensus instance that I may be running for some other application. And again, I'm not sure if this kind of arguments, if these criticisms were sort of, it seemed like a well-researched enough article, but like any other sort of academic exercise, kind of miss things and sort of draw conclusions prematurely. Now, with regard to the actual transaction model, basically, how Hedera works is the client first submits a transaction to a node. The node performs sort of a pre-check on the transactions, and then all the transactions are bundled into an event. So again, pointing back to last time, remember, events and timestamps are basically the fundamental building blocks of how the gossip algorithm works. And so these transactions are bundled into an event, and then the nodes gossip about the event to the entire network. The network determines that consensus timestamp, remember, using the median and so on and so forth. And then basically the client can query the same or a different node for confirmation of the transaction. And then, you can, once the client receives confirmation, they can do whatever, right? So once consensus is achieved. So if you think about this sort of flow, the main latency and the throughput difference occurs when the network applies the transaction, in other words, when it's ordering the transactions, ordering the timestamps rather, right? And so the upshot of this is that if you're going to make an H-bar transfer, right? So for instance, it would be faster than executing a smart contract, right? And the reason why is because the latency for H-bar transactions would be less. And so fundamentally, that's basically what is happening here. And then there are variations to this, right? So remember, like, the client can query what kind of response they are looking for. In other words, the client can ask just for a receipt of the transaction. In other words, it's kind of like metadata to know if has a transaction been delivered into the network, or the client can ask for a return of a record of the transaction. So records are more informative than simply a receipt. So receipts are free, like the client doesn't pay any HBAR for it, but records are not free, and so because they require sort of more, more out of the network, right? And then clients can also ask for a full state of proof. So a state of proof would be a combination of a record plus the entire state of proof. And so a client would ask for a state of proof only if the client doesn't trust the node in question, right? And so if it's a question of how much trust does the client have in a particular node. And so if I'm going to be totally trustless, then I'm going to have to sort of pay either in terms of HBAR or in terms of time in order for me to acquire the amount of trust I need. However, if I have sufficient trust in the node, then I can get away with, say, a receipt or a record without having to wait for a full state of proof. And again, this is something different than, say, a Bitcoin network using full proof of work. There are no gradations to trust, lightly speaking, right? And so that's another sort of distinction that we need to make. And so basically, I think keeping all of this in mind, I think while the criticisms are well taken and well intentioned, I think most of those issues have been addressed in some form or the other. I think especially since the article was written, I think till from there to now, even like I mentioned, with the open source thing, and there have been changes to other things in the network that have happened in the meanwhile, which have only made the network stronger. And ultimately speaking, who are the people who back Hedera? It's not you or me. It's like the big who's who. Are the ones who basically own the nodes that are running the network. So it's Google. It's I think some IBM. It's the Tatas and all across the world. And so I think it's fair to say, and yeah, I think it's fair to say that I trust those big companies for having done their due diligence more than Eric Wall has. And so I think while that's not a technical sort of rebuttal to the last point, but I just think that you know it's not it's not as bad as how Eric Wall seems to point out. Now, it could have been that there was a promotion for some other network of choice. It's entirely possible that Eric was trying to make. But I think for all intents and purposes, the criticisms of Hedera I think, they have been put to rest, I think. And I should mention that after this thing came out in September, it seems that Lehman Barrett actually met with Eric at some point, and while Eric continues at times to criticize, the network, I don't think there has been any further technical issues that he has raised. In other words, whatever technical issues that he raised must have been adequately addressed by Lehman Barrett himself. And so you could say, well, I don't like the color or whatever, but you can't really say that there's something fundamentally wrong, as he was saying. So anyway, with that, I think we just have a few more minutes left. So I'll hand it back to you, Jordan.
That was a masterful analysis, Sriram. So I think that you made it really clear why the criticisms are not well founded and why the I don't want to say bullish because we're not really concerned with, especially in this conversation, concerned with token speculation and things like that. We're talking about the fundamental security of the underlying technology, and that technology is incredible. Sriram mentioned asynchronous penalty fault tolerance, and the incredible SDK, the software development kit, and went line by line through some of the most influential fear, uncertainty, and doubt arguments, and addressed them clearly. We're proud to be building on a network where you can do that. I just want to highlight again that yesterday the network really showed its strength when it handled 24 million transactions in 10 hours, at a clip of, at certain points, I saw well over 1,000 transactions per second on the mainnet, and that's incredible, and that's what has been the promise of the network, where it builds in a consistent way, not trying to do short term pumping prices of tokens or anything like that. That's not what Hedera is concerned with. It's concerned with making an amazing technology for us all to build on. And so, if there's nothing else, get ready to close this room. If anybody has any questions they'd like to ask Sriram, please speak now or forever hold your peace. Sriram, if you have any other last words you'd like to offer, the floor is yours to do that.
I guess my only comment would be I encourage all Hedera enthusiasts and Hedera listeners to this space and so on. I think you should really check out the SDK if you haven't already. It's really nice as a developer to work with it. So
absolutely. And with that, thank you everyone for coming today. We appreciate your support. We hope you learned something today from the incredible, amazing, fantastic Dr. Sriram Nagaraj. And got one request. Hello, tutor. What did you want to share or ask?
No, hey guys. Thanks for having me on. I know we're gonna close the spaces.
No, absolutely.
I missed the beginning. I mean, most of it. So I just wanted to check. Maybe if you can give me the gist of things, what's happening over there at Orocash. I'm keen to learn where you guys stand with the product, and I also understand that you have a dev tool that you guys put together.
Yes. So what we have, we have basically two separate sort of things going on at the moment. So with regard to the Orocash wallet, we are still, we are working towards having that completed and in the market pretty soon on both the Android and the iOS platforms. The Just Pay Me wallet is a CBDC, central bank digital currency wallet, which is actually out on Android and should be shortly out on Apple as well. That's a sandbox version, so that is part of the larger, as I mentioned, central bank digital currency offering. So,
wow, that's amazing, and I don't expect that you guys will be coming up with your own utility token linked to the project.
We are definitely thinking about it now. When it comes to having our own utility token, there are other things that go on right in such a coin offering. We have, I'll be honest, we have seriously thought about the idea, and we have those shelved it for next year for now.
Sounds good. We definitely should have a talk. If you guys want to send me a DM, we can schedule a joint call. And if you're not familiar with Headstarter, please have a look what we've been up to recently, and looking forward to see if we can collab.
For sure. Thank you.
Congrats on the awesome stuff, awesome work that you guys have been doing.
Thanks very much.
It's flying up the radar, and the market will turn soon, and the sentiment will shift. So, looking forward to the day when the spaces will be in the hundreds and thousands.
Thank you very much. And yeah, times like these are when we're grateful to be building on a network that prioritizes the underlying technology. And like you said, we're just kind of building under the radar, just continuing to build and build and build. And the technology, the superior technology, always wins in the end, and the market will figure that out in due time. And go ahead, Julie.
Yeah, I just wanted to agree with you because that's why we are a accelerator and launchpad on Hedera, and that's why we were staying native to Hedera. We truly believe in the future that it proposes, and we already see the writing on the wall from all the projects that are building in the space, whether publicly or still in stealth mode. The future is definitely bright, and Hedera has positioned itself uniquely so that it has it can appeal to DeFi right now, to the NFT wave, but also to the Web 2.5 businesses that have tangible in real life value. The proximity to enterprises definitely sets Hedera apart, and the way that Hedera has been built is second to none when it comes to responsibility and regulatory compliance. So yeah, the next years, as you said, the next years will tell.
Absolutely. If there's nothing else from our listeners, thank today. And remember, if you want to get rich, go alone. If you want to build wealth, come with us.